I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
Dia Gwiv, agus céad míle fáilte a cardja. Ladies and gentlemen, all my gaming unicorns, I'm Jay Cotts, and 1,000 welcomes to the series of where I replay an entire game of yesteryear and discuss the story and gameplay, and finally ask, does it hold up to this day? Sit back, grab a cuppa, and chillax, as we're going on an adventure. Sláinte. Cheers. Resident Evil 4, Devil May Cry, is a game which defined a generation and originally was conceived as another Resident Evil title, but thankfully this was changed. Starring the superstar Dante with backing rock track, gothic atmosphere, and his own twins, Ebony and Ivory. Get ready to button mash and navigate some tricky camera angles as we traverse Malay Island in the search for Mundus and take him out before he crosses over into the human world. I played this game shortly after release as a teenager after watching one of my friends play a few levels. I played through multiple Resident Evils at that point, so another Capcom title with its well-known disclaimer, "This game contains scenes of explicit violence and gore," had me all riled up and ready to hop right in. As I play through the game mission by mission, I'll be discussing the plot, mechanics, gameplay, turbo character dialogue, and aspects people probably have forgotten about, including that infamous voice acting scene as I dissect the story.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
So let us begin. We're introduced to a text scroll giving us information on the legendary Dark Knight Sparta, who stood up against the underworld to protect the human world. Next, we see our rock star, the son of Sparta himself, Dante, in his office where he hunts down demons, but he is having a relaxed evening until a motorbike rams through the front door with a woman named Trish riding upon it. She assaults him, and when defeated, she reveals she is but a friend, and she is not the enemy. Throughout this opening scene, we are delivered fantastic characterization and find out that the underworld is attempting to cross into this one, and Dante reveals the reason why he hunts demons, because one of them killed his mother and brother. Trish takes off her glasses to reveal her face, and Dante recognizes she almost looks identical to his mother. Dante eagerly follows Trish to Malay Island due to this, and this is where the characterization of Dante is at its best in such a short space of time. He kills demons to get revenge. However, although powerful, he is not infallible. He is no superhero. He is capable of taking down hordes of demons, but misjudgment, like he did with Trish, can potentially cause him the ultimate price. This translates so well into the combat in the game, whereby you can literally finish this game without dying once, or due to misjudgment, die by the most basic of enemies. And on Malay Island, Trish decides to quadruple jump, whereas we haven't even learned to double jump yet. So we are left to enter the castle through the only way our legs know how, and introduced to the mission system. Instead of an open mansion as, let's say, Resident Evil 1, where you are gated by special items, Devil May Cry opted to be broken into 23 separate missions with a dozen or so secret missions for those who dared to wander. The game itself is quite linear, and you can normally backtrack to previous locations where you may stumble across a secret mission. Missions generally can last anywhere between 2 minutes upwards towards 20, and by the time you complete a mission, you will be rewarded with an overall grade based on time. Devil May Cry can take anywhere between 4 to 6 hours on a first playthrough for competent players, so the game is quite short, typical of Capcom games at the time, but with high replay value. More on that later. Missions give you an objective with pictures to help you achieve the objective, and usually involves collecting a key item to open some door, or killing an enemy and retrieving something to open some door. So although it's broken into missions, the game still blocks your progress with various key items spread throughout the castle, and backtracking is entirely optional in most cases. As you can see on the screen, we're inside the first room of the castle, and it always gives me police station vibes of Resident Evil 2 with the large statue. We are tasked to collect 45 red orbs, which are the main currency of the game, and to unlock the red door, guarded by one of two coloured hand variants the game has to offer, and we need to take our time to collect these 45 orbs. With the basic tasks complete, we are properly being introduced to the environmental design, and it's absolutely gorgeous. From the island itself, the castle, to the eventual pirate ship, outdoor areas and underworld, the game constantly switches up the environment, and the attention to detail the developers used to give this game its grounded gothic aesthetic is second to none. You can tell the team poured a lot of love into this game when they capture its surroundings so brilliantly. And moving on, we encounter the first enemies of the game, and these marionettes or puppets come in a variety of colours, which give them different attacks, and later on a new upgraded puppet. This is where the game brings in its style point system. So let's talk a little bit about that and its spectacle styled combat. The game grades you from dull, cool, bravo, absolute and stylish, or D to S, just like the end mission screen. The game encourages you to chain combos, taunt more enemies towards you to keep the combos in effect. It took me forever to realise that Dante's taunt actually did more than just a cool gesture, further characterising how badass he really is. The combat system is rather simplistic, by revolving around the use of the attack button, holding, pausing, and adding some new abilities along the way, and then tying these around various ranged weapons we find on our journey. By the end of each mission, we will be given a grade, and this adds to the replay value of the game. Trying to get an S rank on all 23 missions is no easy task, and by the end, and I will show you my report card here, I got a total of 3 S ranks, 0 A's, 8 B's, 6 C's and 6 D's, which looks eerily similar to my school report card back in the day. For an average playthrough, for the first time playing this game since the early 2000s, I would consider this not half bad, the majority of my dull attacks coming from ploughing through the early half of the game with the shotgun. And oh yes, ranged attacks don't offer great style points, but offer a risk-free way in the early missions. This game is difficult. It is intended to be difficult. So if I can find a way to make it just that little bit easier, even on normal mode, then I will take it. Speaking of modes, I believe it's once you die a few times, the game will offer you the option to turn to easy mode. Thanks for encouraging me to play better game by just handing me an easy mode. Really, very appreciated there. This option unlocked for me while I was learning an ideal way to kill Phantom, the game's first boss, which I'll get to very soon. Take note of this plane room, it will be very important later on. On mission 2, we pick up some of the best weapons in the game. We quickly find a shotgun which is supposed to reload after every shot, but I found that by walking forwards, it allows you to obliterate everything in quick succession, making our iconic twins, Ebony and Ivory, very much obsolete this early into the game, just looking at how much we smash through these waves of marionettes. But before this, we find the game's most overpowered sword. That's right, we are introduced to the new broadsword this early into the game, and the way we acquire Alistair is both an awesome spectacle to behold and downright silly, which pretty much sums up this game, a beloved classic. Let's watch this memorable moment, shall we? With every swing we pulse lightning and tear through our enemies, and although it's of similar power and actions to our Force Edge, we can upgrade it in the shop after each mission or finding them during missions, where we discover two particularly good abilities: a thrusting attack, which is great at stabbing enemies and great for our stylish combat, and the game-breaking Air Raid. Although Air Raid costs a hefty amount of red orbs, we can gather this up within a few missions if we ignore everything else, and once we do, the combat challenge is greatly diminished, and I take every pleasure in air raiding my way to victory. You simply jump in the air, L1 to devil trigger, and attack shooting streaks of lightning at your foes as you fly around them. If you're not using Air Raid, are you even existing, bro? And the problem with Air Raid is that it's so good, any additional melee weapons we will find will never be used because they do not have Air Raid. I'm sure there are some elitists out there who will scoff at Air Raid and heckle, "Oh, Air Raid, easy mode bro. Complete Dante must die mode using only Force Edge and take no hits bro." What can I say to that? This game gives me an ability and I can use it. Shortly after, we are introduced to the second coloured hand variety. Grey means we must kill all enemies in the room before the hand shatters, and this will appear on almost every mission. The painting we got the key from earlier comes to life, introducing us to the game's second enemy type, the Sin Scissors, and later various varieties. Devil May Cry does not have many enemy types at all, but what it does introduce to you, it does well. Killed except for attacks to their head. This is why the shotgun you picked up in the same room is so fantastic here. The game is literally giving you a hint of the best way to take these down. Fantastic game design. Taking these out, we find ourselves back at the statue where we found Alistair and give onto it the Staff of Judgment, opening the way to Mission 3 and the next cool feature the game provides. More on that in just a moment. Mission 3 starts and we find ourselves crossing a bridge to unseal the Lionheart. But before we know it, we are struck by lightning and cast into the water and somehow can just walk? Well, let's just go with it. We already got through, like, dragging our body through the sword and also through the hilt of the sword. Like, no one would survive that, but Dante did, so let's just roll with him somehow walking underwater, or however this works, I'm not too sure, but okay. Killing some floating skulls with one shot from the shotgun will allow us to escape this area and replenish any missing health. Upon finishing, I find my first full blue orb in the game, which is formed by combining 4 blue orb shards. This grants us additional max health. Now this is where my biggest gripe with this game comes into effect. We must try pass to the other side of the bridge through the broken sections. The camera angles make this downright irritating. The camera angles can make or break many combat and jumping elements this game has to offer. Sometimes we will need to dodge enemy attacks, while the camera makes that task nigh on impossible. Although it works decently for the most part, the camera works against us more often than not, and makes this game more frustrating than it should be. But let's let the awfulness behind us for now and step into the cool game feature I mentioned a moment ago. Upon re-entering the room with the Lionheart, we are met with the first reoccurring boss of the 4 the game has to offer. First off, Phantom makes a cool entrance and Dante quips back, showing his cool character and likely is underestimating his foe. A reoccurring trait like he did with Trish. So let's see how that will play out.
Big surprise. I hope for your sake you got something inside that big body of
The battle immediately begins after Dante flips over Phantom, which is part of the spectacle combat we already talked about. Some may find reusing bosses to be lazy game design. However, I would argue that creating a reoccurring villain makes them stand out, because when they escape, you know it's only a matter of time until they resurface. And so we begin. Phantom has some fireballs which you can jump to dodge, or even use your sword to fire back at him. His weak point is his head, or his fleshy lava back. He channels pillars of lava underneath you, jumps to squash you, and his regular melee attacks as well. When you win, he will do what every boss does in this game, and escape, but he will be back sooner than we think. The fact is, everything in this game does not like you. In fact, you are the one disturbing everything here, and as their only recourse, they vow vengeance. If we left everything alone, we would not be in this messy situation. Remember how the first marionette attacked us? This is because we took a key from him. We are breaking and entering, and they are defending their home. Ask yourselves, who really is in the wrong here? But it doesn't matter to us. They must die. We have the option to face him as he chases us in 2 separate chase scenes. Defeating him grants some much needed red orbs. But when I saw him this time, I was just like, nah. Mission 4 is titled The Black Knight, which foreshadows a very important character that unfolds within the story. We disturb the Lionheart statue, and right away we attack this demonic shadow wolf, and this enemy is painful. This creature only appears 2 or 3 times in the game, if I recall, and each time you are forced to fight it. Remember, once again, we are disturbing, and we are being attacked as a consequence. Let loose with your shotgun until an orb appears through the shadows, and strike it down with the devil trigger engaged. Speaking of the devil trigger, see those markings underneath your health bar? These fill up while you attack, and unleashing this will transform Dante's attacks into much more powerful attacks, and slowly refill your health. Doing this when enemies show their weakness is a fantastic way of taking massive chunks of health. During this playthrough, I completely forgot until about halfway through the game I can increase the length of the devil trigger by buying purple orbs at the shop, each one adding 1 additional marking. I was so focused on saving up for air raid and the thrust ability, I forgot about enhancing the length of time I could be in devil trigger, which would have made some situations much easier. More devil trigger equals more air raid. You live and learn, I guess. Shortly after, we enter a chamber with a large mirror. Doing so gives us the melancholy soul and triggers the next secondary occurring boss. That's right, a boss very soon after Phantom. With this reoccurring boss system, we just never know when we will be encountering these again, unless the mission title makes it very obvious. So it keeps us weary and our guard up every mission. The Black Knight does not attack us immediately. He is being honourable and shoots off outside the door to await us. There's more to this boss than meets the eye, and his story will unravel later. For now, we will begin a sword duel, where he will teleport around the room at various health percentages to bring the fight to a new location. This is great game design, so we never get too accustomed to the boss space. We can spar with him to stop his sword attack, dodge him when he teleports and closes in for a sword attack, and hit him from behind. Each time we face these bosses, they usually gain new abilities to make each encounter a little different. When we win, he grabs us and sees our pendant, which sets him into a distressed state, as if he is remembering something. But what? He disappears into the sunset sky, and the mission ends. I like that the game introduces mystery so early. What is his motive? We drop into the next mission, which is a timed mission, and quickly we are sought out by another Shadow Wolf, making quick work of him, which is easily the longest part of the mission. We escape through the door, drop to the lowest floor, and this ends one of the shortest missions in the game, which can be done in 2 minutes or less. We find ourselves in the sewer, and when we pick up another rusty key, we are trapped by a swarm of angry insects. These insects are incredibly weak. Running through more swords, we are trapped by a devil variety of sin scissors. Devil May Cry likes to challenge you and see how you respond to various arena sizes, and this claustrophobic arena gives you very little wiggle room, where you must rebound off the walls to dodge the devil's whirling scissor attack and take any opportunity opportunity to attack his head. Upon picking up the guiding key, the mission ends. Another incredibly short mission. Mission 7 is also very quick, but introduced continuous draining health until we get back to the bedroom. Phantom makes another chase scene appearance, which I did bother to do this time, but didn't capture it on camera. And shortly after this, we are at the bedroom again, and Mission 8 makes it very clear we're having a showdown with Phantom. The biggest difference here is that I now have enough red orbs to embrace the destruction of air raid. So this rematch is far easier than intended. Remember, when in doubt, air raid. Despite me taking silly hits from bosses, another reoccurring theme throughout the game, but hey, as long as they die and I don't, it's all what matters. The death scene here is fantastic. Phantom can die in one of two ways. One, that he jumps multiple times on the glass floor beneath you, or you drain his health to 0 like any other boss. Whichever you choose is up to you. Either way, the glass ceiling beneath you will smash and Phantom falls to his death, impaled on the first statue you see in the very entrance hall you begun your adventure. What a neat way to tie up everything together, and experiencing progression and a sense of direction. One thing this game does incredibly well is tie together each location until towards the end, where it relies on portals, but we'll talk about this a little later. Trish sees what we have done, and instead of quadruple jumping up to greet us, she just shakes her head and walks off. There's something very uneasy about that woman. Progressing on, we find a trident which ties us in with one of the first rooms we entered, but first we must break a lever to lower a drawbridge. On the body beside us, we pick up a ranged weapon I will use for the remainder of this playthrough. The good old-fashioned grenade launcher. Resident Evil, eat your heart out. The grenade launcher makes short work of enemies and is fantastic at knocking them down for continued combos from Alistair. What we must do here is use the trident in the statue and quickly dash to the room where the gate is lowering before we cannot pass through it. Simply ignore enemies and do this. Thus ends this mission. So far, we have killed off one reoccurring boss and know a second boss looms out there, somewhere, and could attack us at any moment. We are quickly uncovering more of the castle and almost halfway through the game in terms of missions completed. With mission 9 we find ourselves outdoors, and once we cross the bridge we are trapped outside of the castle. We quickly make our way outside of a coliseum, which we will be getting back to later, where large story events unfold. We meet a new enemy type where 3 of these creatures known as blades confront us, and they have quite beefy health pools, and they can deflect many attacks with the shields they hold on their right forearm. They like to backflip to gain distance, lunge slash, and later use their talons as blood projectiles. Cornering them and hitting them into the air and keeping them suspended or even on their backs will take these out quite easily. This area likes to use a landing strip to guide you in the direction you should go. We move on to another annoying platform section where the camera doesn't help me, but at the top claims what I love to say is a cool prize, but unfortunately we will never see use. The gauntlets, Ifrit. The cutscene here is cool as we are surrounded and embedded with the flames of Ifrit. Final Fantasy be praised. We get a little practice with these punch 'em up style combat on our lovely puppet friends before we are faced with the next reoccurring boss, Griffin.
Son of Sparta who challenges the darkness for this.
Block off, Featherface, or you can stick around and find out the hard way.
What surprises me most about Griffin is you think the game expects you to use your newly acquired Ifrit gauntlets to defeat him. A nice course to show you how good these are. But nope, we will just air raid. Remember, when in doubt, air raid. The fact Griffin doesn't stay in melee range for long further proves how inferior our new gauntlets are, and Griffin can be a fun fight, full of red lightning you need to avoid, but the camera on every encounter with him will do its darndest to prevent us escaping relatively scratch-free. I had an almost flawless fight here, though as I tried to stay more on the open field so the camera is less an issue. With Griffin fleeing, we follow the landing strip, kill a few enemies, and enter the next mission. Entering the Mists is a very quick gimmick mission, using a small white orb to show you the direction to go, otherwise you end up repeating the section. It's very simple and not much to talk about. Once we get through the Mist, we're greeted by two phantom-like spiders, air raid and attack their back for a quick win. The next level starts off with a bit of a nasty fight against another devil variant, which launches you into the air on whirlwinds. It can be a bit disorientating and the camera will most likely go against you, but once it's down you can traverse around the outside to get a simple blue orb, but the route to follow is through the well to find the chalice. We insert the chalice into its slot and lo and behold, we are treated to a rematch with our friend the Black Knight. He is more powerful this time, launching balls of energy in your direction, and the camera here is at its all-time worst and maybe the single reason you'll get hit in this encounter and possibly even die. And when the Black Knight hits you, he can take a large chunk of your HP. Taking him out, you will think it's all over, but once again he arises and escapes, awaiting an eventual round 3. For mission 12, we get a pop-up showing us underwater controls. I bet most of you forgot about this section of the game. I know I certainly did. Underwater water controls. Let me repeat that again. Underwater controls. Underwater. Water mission. Exactly. The best part of this mission is entering a pirate ship. After tackling some basic swimming controls, we find ourselves within the hull of the pirate ship, and after we take out some quick battles, we get our hands on the needle gun, the only weapon to work underwater, and for the very limited time we ever are in the water and need to battle in water, I wonder why the developers ever included these sections. They could have cut out these parts and still had a cohesive experience. What is it about gamers and dreading underwater levels? Maybe it's memories of games like Sonic the Hedgehog, or maybe even Zelda Ocarina of Time and the Water Temple. The underwater sections are extremely short, which is the only good side, with only one level fully dedicated to it. Thankfully also the shortest in the entire game, with taking 1 to 2 minutes maximum to clear. No, I'm serious. But before we use the needle gun, we head up onto the deck, and after some orb hunting, we activate the pirate ship for a nice cutscene. But before we can get anywhere meaningful, we are hunted down by who other than Griffin, once again for a second encounter. This encounter plays out quite similar, but Griffin spends even more time off screen and has whirlwind-like a mechanic like the previous devil encounter to throw you into the air. Wait for him to land to get as many blows on him as possible, watching out for lightning surrounding him where possible, or soak it and heal through it with the devil trigger. But before we can celebrate, the ship is caught in a whirlpool and is sunk, and thus begins our underwater combat. Once again, underwater, water controls. Yes, I know guys. But don't worry. You just need to get out of here within 2 minutes. That's it. Just 2 minutes. If you can survive this, you can get through the rest of the game. Don't worry. You realistically only need to take out 2 enemies in the first room to proceed and clear the level. But before you leave the ship, enter where the grey hand destroyed and grab the blue orb. Then proceed out the crack in the ship, ignoring the few enemies in the way. Congratulations on your 1 to 2 minute clear and the most easiest S rank for a sweet 1500 bonus red orbs. Now with the forgettable underwater sections done, for now at least, we arrive back on land and make our way to the start of the next mission. If games have taught me anything, it's not to touch a skeleton hand lever attached to a wall of spikes. This mission begins with some traps. We need to travel around spikes sticking up from the floor as the floor rotates. We take our fight to the cliffside and just make our way past more Devil Scythe variants, and the mission quickly ends. This mission is another extremely short one. Now it's time to enter the Colosseum after unlocking it and grabbing a laser gun along the way, but it's inferior to the grenade launcher in my opinion. We see the sun has finally settled and night is here. changing a lot of things which we will soon see. Here we are hunted down once again for Griffin's final confrontation. We have a lot of red lightning to dodge here, dodging between the gaps, but guess what? Guess what makes this a lot more tougher than it truly is? That's right, the camera. The goddamn camera angles. Eventually, he will take higher to the air, and we will need to follow him up by teleporting on the sides. Watch as I teleport and get into an unavoidable situation. Thankfully, there are many healing green orbs on top here as well, so it's easy to heal up. It's almost as if the game expected this to happen. We get a quick scene once we knock him out of the sky, and he destroys the upper Colosseum, and spends most of the time now grounded for an easy finish to the encounter. Truly an encounter where the pain is front-loaded and easier in the second half. If in doubt, air raid. Thankfully, the pillar we need to get underground falls on Griffin before he lifts into the sky and he calls out his master for another chance. Let's see what happens, shall we?
Those are definitely the powers of Sparta. Even more so. But I cannot let you live. For I serve my master Mundus.
You can't fight with that wound.
Mighty is the power of Mundus. Master, grant me one last surge of power. The power to finish him. Master Mundus. Griffin, you have failed me. You are no longer worthy. What? No! Wait! No! Let go!
The three-eyed.
You beat him. Maybe it was too easy for you.
Mundus. His heinous ways make me sick, killing even his own, like they were nothing. He's the one that took the life of my mother, my brother, and Shirley. My mother used to always tell me that my father was a man who fought for the weak. He had courage and a righteous heart. In the name of my father, I will kill Mundus.
Now we know Mundus is the reason he really took the job, as he is the demon which killed Dante's mother and brother. Mundus showed no mercy, and we see the price of failure in his eyes. So with that, Trish disappears and we make our way to the next mission once we take the object under the Colosseum. Just once I get on it? Come on. There we go. We see now how dark and depressing the atmosphere is, as we are enveloped in a veil of darkness where the game uses its lightning effects to great effect, further encapsulating the feeling of being alone as the forces of the underworld are choking us. Soon, we are set upon by a new lightning bat enemy once we get inside the castle, known as a plasma. These can transform into humanoid forms and copy basic attacks of Dante's melee weapons, and also fire out hard-hitting beams in both bat and humanoid forms, with the ability to duplicate itself. Taking out a single one of these enemies isn't a difficult task, but we will have more waiting in the next room. After some more enemies, we face off against our final reoccurring boss, a sludge demon known as Nightmare. Nightmare cannot be hurt in this form and needs to be exposed by attacking the triggers around the room, which give about 15 or so seconds to allow the boss to expose his core. The annoying part here is when the game's soft locking system tends to direct your attacks at Nightmare and not the triggers on the wall. It would be great if we could properly lock onto our targets manually here. This rarely is an issue in the game, usually for me. Sometimes it can be annoying in packs of enemies, but I found it most egregious in the Nightmare encounters. He typically sends out worms to freeze you and sends out barrages of lasers and other projectiles to whittle down your health. Eventually, destroying the core will have the boss, as you have guessed it, retreat. Exiting through the door, we face the destroyed platform bridge as we saw before. Remember this when I first started complaining about the camera angles more so? Well, now it's back. It's just easier here to fall into the water, kill the few skulls, and teleport to the opposite side. Upon reaching here, we end the 16th mission. Now this is my final big gripe with the game. It creates 2 portals, which you can pass into, almost making you think you can complete the next section in either order. But you really can't. Only the left portal is viable. It's at this time the game forgoes the exploration of the island and starts cutting up the remainder of the game into portals. Since the castle has changed now that it's nighttime and paths have been blocked, I suspect this is because it allowed the developers to finish creating this portion of the game a lot faster, as they did not need to recreate the entire castle in this form. This is a fall from grace for this game, as the opening missions had us slowly discover more and more of the castle and island and see how important it is all connected together. Now it's just us bouncing from set piece to set piece, even more so when we enter literally portal holes in the ground, showcasing how disconnected everything feels, taking out the travel element of the game. The next mission starts off introducing us to a new enemy type with a cool cutscene involved with a gorgeous moon in the backdrop. Frost, as they're called, like to use ice skills and like to launch themselves into the air, surround the area around them in ice. They can regenerate lost health by encasing themselves in a block of ice and can do melee attacks and range strikes. Soon we get to a T-Rex and we must hit his fireballs back to him 3 times, where we then get access to a mirror to rotate and allow us to obtain the Quicksilver item it was protecting. We are supposed to use disappearing platforms and the lightning here, which is pretty cool, but you can just double jump the wall at the end to save yourself a lot of time. But before we can make any further progress, our party is crashed by our final encounter with who other than the Dark Knight himself, our longest lasting reoccurring boss from Mission 4, now Mission 17. This time he reveals his face, and it's somewhat similar to Dante? What's going on here? The fight plays out largely the same as the last encounter, but this time the knight can teleport into the air and unleash waves of daggers in various directions at you. In this state he is open to ranged attacks, so it can be a fantastic time to use the grenade launcher or even air raid, and regain a lot of health in the process as he's stuck casting. Keep dodging and jumping when he teleports, which opens himself to be countered, but anytime he hits you will be a large sting, particularly if he combos you. One of the best ways is to almost stun lock him with the devil trigger enabled, as you can cut out a significant portion of his health bar. Upon defeat, he evaporates in a wave of energy and drops the pendant which Dante wears, and hears the voice of his mother wishing both he and his brother Virgil a happy birthday, signaling that the Dark Knight was a corrupted version of his brother Virgil. The next scene has Mundus talking to Trish, making sure we, the player, understand that really is the case. Now we properly know that Trish was not just sent because she heard that Mundus was trying to escape the underworld, but because she was originally ordered to, and it was he who created her in the image of Dante's mother. So Trish is a demon, which kind of explains the quadruple jump and lightning and such we witnessed during the game. I find this part of the plot a bit strange, because if he never ordered her to bring Dante here, he could have just entered the human world. Dante would have been none the wiser and made sure he was fully regenerated before the only person who could conceivably stop him did exactly that. What exactly is your end game here, Mundus. Back in the castle, Dante receives his final sword, the Sword of Sparta, upgrading from Force Edge, when the amulets of the brothers join. The problem with this sword, as you probably have guessed, it doesn't have air raid, and will see no use unless we are forced to use it. Maybe that's a slight spoiler. Another painting, another location, and we're briefly dropped into the final underwater section of the game. Hurrah! Finding a blue orb, some red orbs, and fighting off 3 sin scissors, we soon leave the underwater area upon reaching the top of the spiral tower and grab the philosopher's egg. Using this egg will unleash Nightmare again, and so soon after our first encounter. And just like the first, the soft locking can get really annoying here, where Dante will aim towards the boss instead of the trigger on the wall. Taking out Nightmare, we begin Mission 19 and pass through the mirror world, where we first met Virgil. Now we face the final enemy types of the game, the horrific looking nobodies. Nobodies can change their size to deal more damage and also deplete the devil trigger. They explode when they die and can also drop proximity mines. This mission could have been cleared minutes faster for myself, but I kept failing at grabbing the blue orb at the side of the tower and had to rerun the area multiple times before finally claiming it. Getting back to where we first fought both Phantom and Nightmare, we can now finally go through the puddle in the floor, bringing us into the underworld. We're almost there. Mission 20 is set in the underworld and we are getting closer to tracking down Mundus. The environment changes too, as if we are inside a living being. Trish sets us up for our final confrontation with Nightmare. That's right, every 2 missions we have fought this boss, and this is his hardest form, but really acts almost identical to his previous incarnations, except that he can fly onto the ceiling and shoot from there, interrupting your attacks. Once he reaches around 25% health, Trish will step in and laugh at us as she zaps us. Notice how Nightmare isn't present in the scene. Continuity game, come on. Every so often Trish will attempt to help Nightmare with lightning attacks, but we just need to keep up the pressure, and soon the core will be finally destroyed. Let's watch the next scene.
Dante! Dante, why did you save my life?
Because you look like my mother. Now get out of my sight. The next time we meet, it won't be like this.
Dante!
Don't come any closer, you devil! You may look like my mother, but you're nowhere close to her. You have no soul. You have the face, but you'll never have her fire!
Dante saves Trish in a touching scene, but uh-oh, Trish is in trouble and seems to be destined to have the same fate as Griffin. In this mission, we make our way to the heart of the nightmare, fighting off a mix of plasmas and nobodies in a very short mission. Once we activate the heart, the final door opens and we are in for a gorgeous white temple, the only time we see such a colour palette in the game, and it's a pity we cannot fight in this room and it's only used for cutscenes. Let's watch a moment of this scene.
Again I must face a Sparta. Strange fate, isn't it?
Strange and ironic that it will end the same way.
Irony has favored you this time. Look, there.
Trish!
Don't even think about it. Blink. She dies.
You!
Dante!
So sad that humans will always be humans. No more. Has the Spartan blood been spoiled over the ages? Now, die!
Trish! Trish! No!
Useless scum. Failure is one thing, but taking an odd behavior like that. What is the matter? It is time to end your pitiful life.
How much longer are you going to keep zapping? Come out and show yourself, Mundus!
Those eyes. Deep in them, I see the same light as in Sparta's eyes.
Why my mother?
That useless being. If you need a mother, I can create it. As many as you want. Just like I created Trish.
Silence!
Now this is where it gets weird. We have a cosmic war in this dimension. Dante transforms into demon form and we begin blasting through the air, directing energy balls at Mundus, all while on an all-rails experience. All we must do is keep blasting the defense spheres anytime Mundus summons them, while we try to dodge the various abilities Mundus throws at us. Each time we destroy a sphere, we gain more Devil Trigger, and once all spheres are down, he's open to attack. And by activating Devil Trigger, we launch a dragon through Mundus. Well, look, the game is already pretty out there, so a dragon, yeah, let's just do dragon. All good. The damage is based by how much Devil Trigger is used, and a full Devil Trigger takes a huge portion of the boss's health. Yeah, I told you it gets weird. It's so unlike anything else in the game, and I wonder, was this really needed? It's quite bizarre. The developers opted for something that sounded cool than an actual cool spectacle. And if we have learned anything thus far, this game is all about the spectacle. After a few repeats of the Devil Trigger, we take out Mundus, but that's not all. Like the reoccurring bosses, he also needs a new form or new abilities, but why not try both? The second form of Mundus is much more difficult. It finds us in a crater where Mundus is planted at its center, and we must launch many fireballs at him using our Devil Trigger. If you have been saving Devil Stars to grant 5 gauges to your Devil Trigger, now is a great time to use them. Activating this cuts down a lot of the difficulty, as you can take out a lot of his health each item used and regenerate some of yours at the same time. You will most likely take out more spheres fears along the way, all while pumping more and more fireballs into Mundus. You can jump on rotating platforms, but Mundus also likes to destroy these or create these to block your attacks, summon many laser blasts, attack you with his arms, and summon lava dragons to assault you. More dragons, just bring on the dragons, Devil May Cry, bring on more dragons. This can also be a great time to use any untouchable item, granting you full devil trigger and invulnerability. It's the last fight, you might as well go all out, unless you're planning multiple playthroughs. Once he reaches 0, he will scream and you will appear back in the temple. Now let's watch this touching scene and very memorable scene, like I showed you in the beginning of this video, for one particular badly executed voice acting.
My mother risked her life for me, and now you too. I should have saved you.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
This was my mother's. Now I'm giving it to you. My father's also here now. Rest in peace.
Iconic. And with that ends Devil May Cry. Wait, what's that? There's another mission? But we just stopped Mundus. What on earth could this be? Mother's Guide. Escape Melee Island before it collapses. Ah, but of course, this is made by Capcom. Just like any Resident Evil game, you need a fancy countdown timer before everything self-destructs. How very Capcom of you, Capcom. And in such countdown frantic endings, the game will launch a lot of enemies at you, in which you can just run around them if you wish. Soon we will make it to the plane room, one of the beginning rooms we find. I told you this will be important. Oh, but no, we collapse through the floor and land in the sewers, taking us far off track. How will we ever get out in time before this island self-destructs? And Mundus appears for a third encounter to make sure he becomes a reoccurring boss as well. So I guess there are 5 reoccurring bosses in the game now. After taunting each other, we make quick work of him by unleashing the devil trigger. Trish recovers, and with your twins, we use Ebony and Ivory on Mundus until we can unleash one final devil trigger.
It looks like we have a winner.
Jackpot!
I will return, and I will rule this world!
Goodbye. And when you do come back, give my regards to my son, will ya?
Oh, Dante, always staying on character.
Trish!
Dante. Dante.
Trish, devils never cry. These tears are a gift only humans have.
We're too late.
No, Trish. It's never never too late. And we humans never give up. Are you ready?
The plane collapses through the ceiling with hardly a scratch and miraculously is ready to be piloted and has machine guns on the side to blow a hole through the wall. And in a final effort, we need to fly through some cavern, blowing up some pillars and dodging in a very brief scene. Once again, this did not need to be included, but the developers went for the this sounds cool effect. Then we get another strange moment where Dante becomes a philosopher for a moment.
The sky, so clear, so blue.
The sky is fair. It'll always be above everyone's head, no different.
I guess these philosopher items we found in the castle really rubbed off on him. And then we get an even weirder sounding line from Trish.
There's no need to worry, right? 'Cause the world has the legendary Dark Knight Dante and his sidekick.
Really, Trish? You just blurt out you're the sidekick just like that? This isn't Batman and Robin. And with a quick name change, we see the new crime-stopping duo already at work. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, and all my devil-crying unicorns out there. So how does it hold up? The story is rather messy, especially with Mundus bringing the only person who can destroy him back to his island, and then just Trish and her change of heart and how teardrops revived her in the end. And I think that's what it does. Phoenix Downs from Dante, anyone? It's a compact linear affair which puts a lot of style into not only its captivating environments but through its combat and design. Speaking of combat, although it can be rather simplistic, it works well outside of the odd annoyance of soft locking, and the range in your expanding arsenal boasts well, even if you will most likely stick with Alistair due to air raid for the entire game. Focusing in on the captivating environments, the developers nailed the gothic aesthetic and the camera captures this beautifully, but the camera betrays you far too many times during the gameplay and can be a hindrance. If the game kept up the exploration throughout the game, instead of resorting to teleporting through paintings and portals in a disorientating, disconnecting second half, I think this game would have been all the better for it. Although far from perfect, it is a brilliant game which inspired many games into the future, and overall a great franchise, if we omit its sequel, Devil May Cry 2. With that said, its prequel of Devil May Cry 3 further explored what made 1 so great and went right in and hailed as one of the greatest video games of all time. Thank you very much for your support. If you liked the video and want to see more, then please click that subscribe button and interact with the video. Share it, whatever you wish. Thank you for watching, and in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Shlonga Fall. See you soon. Jay, signing out.